So, good evening, America, and welcome to Q News Tonight. This is Wednesday, January 8th, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're live. Welcome to the world's first live, gay, daily evening news show. Continues to be a mouthful for me. I'm your anchor host, your anchor, Al Ferguson, and my anchor partners, Aaron Darr.
Good evening, everyone.
And Napoleon Plays.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
We are broadcasting this historic new first premiere week in the World AIDS Museum, coming to you from Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we're very excited to be the first live, daily, gay evening news show in the world. As you saw last night, it was quite exciting. We were on the air when the missiles got launched from Iran to the two bases in Iraq. And fortunately, we know today that there has not been casualties, and so we're happy about that. We were quite concerned last night. So before we jump into the news, anything else we want to say about this week so far at Q News Tonight?
As a production company, this is about as good as we could have hoped it to have gone. As a citizen of the United States, I have a lot of fear that is growing every single day.
Yeah. And Aaron, any thoughts about where we're at?
What an interesting week to launch this show with all the breaking news that is going on across the Middle East.
Yes,
really.
Exactly. Well, we have launched into 2020 in a big way, and we're determined to bring live news to the LGBT community here in America and around the world. So let's jump right into it, shall we? Our first segment tonight is called Q Up the World, and we have several stories that we're bringing to you. First, we're reporting about a Boeing jet plane that was taking off from Iran has crashed, and 176 people are dead. We've prepared this little piece for you about the story. Watch this.
Developments this morning in that deadly crash of a Boeing 737 in Iran. Cheryl Casoni on Headlines Now. Good morning, Cheryl.
Good morning, Maria. Well, Ukraine has just suspended flights to Iran after a Ukraine International Airlines flight went down in Tehran earlier today. It killed all 176 people on board. Now, this was a Boeing 737-800, not a MAX jet. It had just left the Iranian capital on its way to Ukraine. There were no Americans on board. The head of Iran's civil aviation organization says he will not give the plane's black box to Boeing. We also just got a statement in just moments ago from Boeing. They are in communication with their customer, which would be obviously the Ukrainian airline.
So as you just saw, yet again, more distressing news out of Iran with a Ukrainian International Airlines Boeing that had gone down shortly after taking off out of the Tehran airport in Iran, killing 176 individuals. Unfortunately, both Ukraine and Iran, both countries and their leadership have walked back recent statements blaming the Boeing going down for both technical issues as well as potential rocket attacks. Witnesses describe having seen the plane just be a fireball in the sky. Under international rules right now, we see that because the plane has crashed on Iranian territory, Iran is responsible for the internal investigation to get to the root of what has actually happened. Ukrainian President Zelensky's gone on to state that our priority is to establish the truth and those responsible for this terrible catastrophe. So this story continues to develop today as we speak.
Okay. Also in Q Up the World, we are reporting an interesting story that is taking place about two gay fathers that have a surrogacy and how they're on the verge of bankruptcy. It brings an interesting storyline to us that affects many in the LGBT community. And Napoleon, you're going to tell us about it.
That is right. In Shropshire, England, there has been an LGBTQ couple, a gay couple, that has attempted to adopt a child. And the surrogate mother, from which they paid €17,000 for the medical expenses, then asked for $3,000 extra to support other causes that they needed, and then they were denied the access to their child. They could not even find out information about the child that they had been taking care of for the time frame before. Now, this is important because they had been friends with this surrogate mother for a long time beforehand, before she was pregnant. In fact, she was even at their wedding. And then after some of these complications, not only did she ask for more money in addition to what she had been initially charged, but the couple was stated to have gone bankrupt over trying to appease both the mother and the mother's boyfriend, who was on the adoption certificate. And this raises the question over what values and what can a surrogate mother actually do to deny the couple their child, the one that they have paid for, the one that they were looking forward to. This is not the first child that this couple has adopted. They had another surrogate child, and they were looking forward to having a second in their family. So you can imagine this is devastating to think that you're preparing for a child that you cannot then have.
I'm curious, in the headlines of this story, is it different because LGBTQ male parents are involved? Would it be a similar situation, do you think, in the straight community, or is this unique or a developing unique situation in LGBTQ+?
I'm not really sure how to answer that. I don't know what the adoption process is like in Europe or in England specifically. I know in the US we have a lot of blockades from allowing anyone, much less an LGBTQ couple, from getting a child. And there are so many children that do need to be adopted that are pushed into that adoption process, or that, as we will see probably in time, cannot have a mother that either goes through with a process to not have the child. And so I'm fearful of where that could be.
All right. Well, we move on in our final story and cue up the world this evening, and that is going to Central America. Nicaragua has a very famous LGBTQ activist that was arrested, and while arrested, was tortured. And Aaron, tell us about the news of what's going on in Nicaragua.
Yes, very distressing. And a well-known LGBT activist named Ulises Rivas, who happens to be the founder of Asociación Hijos del Acros Iros LGBTI, states that members of the Nicaraguan police department had tortured him and beat him, as they had done countless other political prisoners, after serving him with an arrest warrant that stated that he had robbed a woman, he had incited violence, he had destabilized peace within his neighborhood, and he was hiding under false protectors of the environment that surrounded him. He eventually was released after being held captive as a political prisoner for weeks with 90 other political prisoners, and his next court appearance is on January 15th. So the story continues again to develop in Nicaragua.
We'll continue to watch that at Q News tonight. That is our reporting on Q Up the World this evening. We want to mention, as you know, we are broadcasting from the World AIDS Museum here in Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and we thank the World AIDS Museum as being our host in 2020. And this new set that we're sitting at was provided and designed by Concepto Modern Living here in Fort Lauderdale, and we thank them for the support of Q News tonight. We move into our next segment called Q Up the USA and some of our national news, and today was a big one. We begin, of course, with President Trump addressing the nation on Iran. We've prepared this piece for you. Watch this.
The time has come for the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia, and China to recognize this reality. They must now break away from the remnants of the Iran deal, or JCPOA. And we must all work together toward making a deal with Iran that makes the world a safer and more peaceful place.
Really, as part of this whole recipe, the administration, mainly at John Bolton's behest, tore up the Iran agreement, placed a significant and severe embargo on Iran, and then killed one of their major generals. Nobody in their right mind would actually think that that would lead to negotiation. So when Secretary of State Pompeo is out there saying, well, maximum pressure, our goal is to get them back to the negotiating table. No naive child would believe that. You would have to be brain dead to believe that we tear up the agreement, we put an embargo on you, and we kill your major general, and they're just going to crawl back to the table and say, what do you want, America?
So as you just saw, President Trump recently delivered remarks as the United States official response to Iran, putting forth over 24 missiles at U.S. sites all across Iraq. He said that Iran appears to be allegedly standing down, and he vows to put forth new sanctions on Iran. As you also saw recently, Republican Senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul, had, quote, said that the president was brain dead, or one would have to be brain dead to believe the Iranian policy that he was putting forth. So we're starting to see a fraction within the Republican Party from at least one split of a Republican U.S. senator that's not agreeing with the policies that are going forth by the Trump administration on Iran.
One of the things, Aaron, that I think is interesting in the president's remarks today is he calls Iran a terrorist state, again,
Yes.
which he's been doing consistently, talking about the nuclear proliferation issues. Do you think that Iran's statements that it was a response to the assassination of the general, but it was specifically designed not to create casualties, etc., that we will freeze, or do you is your inclination that we're going to respond from what happened to last night?
Well, I think that Iran had to respond. I mean, we did kill literally one of their top in command in terms of their generals. So with that being said, I'm very happy to hear, as I'm sure that both of you are too, that there were no U.S. casualties in the dozens of missiles that they put forth. But it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to play out with President Trump's response to the nation today and what we decide to do going forward. But interestingly enough, not just the United States' response, but like President Trump was saying to the nation today, the United Kingdom, Germany, France, countless others, and their response in regards to what's going on with Iran right now, clearly forcing his hand for other nations, our allies, and perhaps our adversaries to pick sides as well.
All right. Well, of course, we're going to keep close tabs on this. Let's move into another segment this evening, a little lighter than how we begin the show, and that is called Q Up Entertainment at Q News Nightly. Everybody remembers the television show Saved by the Bell. Very popular in the LGBT community. It has been announced that Saved by the Bell is going to have a reboot, and they have cast a trans actress as a major character. Napoleon, tell us about what's happened there.
That is right. As many of our generation remember, Saved by the Bell was a show that aired from 1989 to 1993, only for 4 seasons, and it is getting rebooted in our current culture. There is a star, Josie Toda, who was cast as the popular girl, a new character named Lexi at Bayside High. She got her fame in a Mindy Kaling show called Champions, which is available on Netflix, and we are going to see not only her, but original stars Elizabeth Berkley, who is Jessie, and Mario Lopez, who is Slater, both starring in this show as well. So let's see what comes of it in this new era of a reboot.
Both of y'all watch Saved by the Bell every week when it first aired, I'm sure?
Every single snow day. That's
right.
where I associate.
I saw reruns.
Yeah, that was my joke. You weren't even alive when Saved by the Bell came out. Also in Q Up Entertainment, lots of news about homophobic remarks by comedians. There was news about Eddie Murphy and his comments, and also Kevin Hart's comments. Aaron, tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Yes, so many of us know Eddie Murphy from his acclaimed SNL days, but he was recently nominated for a Golden Globe for a documentary called Dolomite Is My Name. And Eddie Murphy's gone on to state that he publicly has regretted some statements that he made in a 1983 comedy special in which he insinuated that one could develop AIDS by kissing another individual and used the term faggot to describe gay people. Kevin Hart, also a lot of us remember some time ago, he also was removed, having been the potential host for the Oscars after going on making public statements that were deemed to be homophobic, saying that if he ever caught his son playing with dolls, he would in return take the dollhouse and break it over his head. So he's gone on to apologize for that too, but it's a clear distinction between both Hart and Murphy, and saying that Eddie Murphy realizes that what he said was wrong, but it was appropriate for the time. So still regretful from both of them, but I don't know that either one of them truly understand the gravity of their remarks.
I think I read recently, Twitter, I believe, Kevin Hart made observations that his comments were very immature, and he regretted it because of the immaturity of his remarks.
That's something that I saw too, but I also wonder too, just the gravity of the remarks in which he's made throughout the course of his career, and let's be honest, the career that he's made on making fun of LGBT people, as others have as well. One has to wonder, did he just make this a public apology just because he was removed as host from the Oscars? I don't believe that it was genuine.
That's exactly the point. And as we discussed on It's Happening Out, our sister show on the network, we were figuring out, do we feel that just an apology is acceptable, or should he be retributing in some way to the LGBTQ community? Because so far it is just words. It's not actions that have followed through in any way. So we'll see how this plays out.
Napoleon helps remind us that Q News Tonight is produced by the Happening Out television network. And this is a digital television network that has multiple programs, an entertainment show at Monday nights at 8 o'clock called Happening.Fun. And tonight, on Wednesday nights, It's Happening Out, the most popular live gay TV show in the world, will broadcast at 8 o'clock and part of the network, and we'll tell you more about that. Please make sure you tune in at 8 o'clock. It is a lot of fun. Talk show. It's The View for the LGBT community. Let's move into another segment called Q Up Sports. And tonight we have a couple of interesting sports stories for you. First, in the state of Tennessee, a bill is about to be introduced that will require gender identity in schools to be identified as your birth gender. We've prepared a little information on this story, so watch this.
It's new this morning. A controversial bill being proposed in Tennessee is being called by some an attack on transgender students. The bill, sponsored by Representative Bruce Griffey, would require transgender students to play on high school sports teams based on their assigned sex at birth. Our CBS affiliate WTVF spoke with the Tennessee Equality Project. They say that the bill promotes ignorance, hate, and discrimination. Now, if it's passed and schools are caught violating the bill, allowing transgender students to participate on the teams of their chosen gender, they could lose state funding, be disqualified from events, and pay a $10,000 fine. It's all part of the 2020 slate for state lawmakers.
Yeah, so as you just saw, very concerning news out of the state legislature in Tennessee. House Bill 1572, which is sponsored by Representative Bruce Griffey, goes on to state that he wants to prevent trans athletes in public and private schools all across Tennessee from playing on teams that match their newly founded gender identities. If a school is found letting them do such an activity on a sports team, the schools can in return be fined $10,000. The sponsor of this bill, again, Bruce Griffey, has said that this is a proactive measure to maintain fairness, simply because males are known to have larger hearts and get this, more upper body strength, which would lead them to have more of an advantage physically over their female counterparts. So it sounds like it is not only transphobia, but a slice of sexism slid into legislation here in 2020 in the state of Tennessee.
I think you covered that perfectly.
I think we've covered that perfectly.
Unfortunately, yes.
Also in queuing up sports tonight, we want to talk about the National Hockey League. And the actual opposite of what we're hearing and being reported about transgender in Tennessee is the opposite in the NHL. The NHL is now fully involved in a series of Pride Nights. And Napoleon, tell us about what's going on there.
That is right. The National Hockey League, the NHL, has 31 teams, and each of those 31 teams within the course of their season hosts a Pride Night or an Inclusion Night. And this past Saturday, January 4th, we were witnessed and experienced as a country the very first of those nights, which was hosted by the New Jersey Devils. And they not only sold different colored caps and rainbow pins to benefit local LGBTQ communities, but they also had a pre-game panel where they discussed LGBTQ plus inclusion.
Excellent. Fans of hockey?
Not particularly, but I'm happy to hear something positive happening in New Jersey.
Very much so. It's beautiful to watch.
America, we're broadcasting from Wilton Manors, Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We affectionately say we're the gayest place on planet Earth. I went to the Pride Night here in South Florida, the Florida Panthers, and it's really quite a fun experience to have a gay major sporting event and specialization. We're going to now move into queuing up business, and it's one of the things that we're committed to in terms of talking about different kinds of business issues that affect the LGBT community. And going on right now is one of the largest conventions in the world in Las Vegas, called the Consumer Electronic Shows. And geeks everywhere are having a great time, and no better anyone to talk about, well, I'll tell you that in a moment, is our resident table geek, Napoleon. But we prepared this on CES. Watch this.
Impossible Burger has taken the world by storm with its beef replacement over the last couple of years. At the 2020 Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, Impossible Foods' pork alternative is the star, being shown off in multiple recipes on the expo's show floor. So how is it?
Delicious.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, pork is the #1 most consumed meat around the world, which Impossible Foods Chief Executive Pat Brown says is why their next innovation is with pork.
That is right. CES, which is the Consumer Electronics Show, started yesterday on Tuesday for this year in Las Vegas. And in addition to the Impossible Pork conversation that you saw in the video, they have a number of other technological advances which we want to report on. And that includes airports having a parallel reality as well as an exoskeleton, which helps different employees lift the actual baggage. I know that when we traveled, you were concerned about that. Ivanka Trump came to the Consumer Electronics Show and discussed the U.S. government's involvement as far as U.S. students and workers go. We have flying taxis, 5G laptops, an electronic Sony car, and of course a sex app, which helps men figure out how to postpone their ejaculations during sex. So we have all sorts of value coming from this program every single year, and I look forward to seeing what else comes of this one.
How exciting that we leave it to the nerds to help us figure out how to have a better life. One of my most exciting products that I saw was the new Sony television. And the Sony television was automated and can move in 365 degrees. You could take your smartphone and move close to the television, even a 70-inch television, and the television will move and turn sideways like your phone and give you so you can do your phone on a 70-inch television.
Oh, wow.
It really exciting.
Social media at the next level.
Yeah, that's right. And that's Q Up business. We move into Q Up style. And we are going to talk about some of the most anticipated buildings in 2020. We've seen recently, yesterday and today, some of the most exciting buildings that are coming in the world in 2020. And Aaron's going to tell us a bit about that.
Yes, it is 2020, a new year, so the dawn of a new decade. So from museums to skyscrapers to even a hotel with a hole in it. So there are going to be countless buildings that are going to be going up in 2020 all across the world, and a lot of them are anticipated because they take architecture to the next level. And they are in areas of Canada, Germany, Dubai, Australia, Norway, Egypt, and countless others. In particular, there's one that I'm very excited about here in North America, and that's the Vancouver House in Vancouver, Canada. And there's another that is in Nanjing Zendai Himalayas Center, which is in Nanjing, China. So as you can see from the video that we've provided for you today, very exciting for the architecture that's going to be coming our way.
I saw one of the pictures of a building that's going to open in China this year called the Building of 1,000 Trees. And they've incorporated fully grown elm and oak trees in the building design, in an indoor-outdoor design with 1,000 trees incorporated in the building structure itself.
It's interesting, too, if you actually look at the architecture, in particular other areas like Dubai, they've also incorporated the environment and trees into their architecture as well.
Many of the pictures that we're showing behind you, Aaron, is of the Dubai World's Fair, the World Expo that is coming, and the different pavilions that are coming to Dubai. Quite interesting, and a feature in our Q Up style tonight at our nightly news. Our final segment this evening is called Q Up Good News. And in Q Up Good News, we want to talk about one final moment of New Year's. We're in the first full week after our New Year's, Wednesday night. New Year's Day was last Wednesday, and it got us thinking about resolutions. It's not too late to start 2020 off great. and we focused on LGBT, great LGBT resolutions. And Napoleon's going to tell us a little bit about what we might consider.
That is right. A lot of resolutions might just relate to your personal self, but we can also include our greater community as we're making these resolutions in our actions. And some to consider that include the LGBTQ community include reading the book, The Velvet Rage, Overcoming the Pain of Growing Up in a Straight Man's World, which is by Alan Downs and details some past anxieties that potentially every gay man has experienced or every gay person has experienced as through the course of time. Another one is to get all of your quoted freaky stuff off of social media, which means that on Grindr, when you're sexting with somebody else, maybe second guess it, because as the LGBTQ community has seen over history, we are definitely exploited in dark times, and we may be coming into those, so watch where we're going in the future. Another one would be to support trans immigration organization and LGBTQ organizations, because you never know what kind of children or LGBTQ children might be captive in different communities. Just moving on quickly, a couple more would be to pay someone else's personal debt, because as history has shown, the LGBTQ community has been greatly intertwined with the medical industry.
You're asking me to pay your debt off as a good resolution?
I think that all of America could say that that would be a job well done and a pat on the back.
What a socialist.
Wow.
That's for another
Bernie
conversation
Sanders,
and another show.
Supporter, are you?
And then to round it off, to talk about and both end-of-life rituals and your emergency plan with your chosen family. A lot of us in the LGBTQ community don't have as strong of a bio family or people that we have come from biologically, but we instead choose our family.
Yeah.
So making sure that we treat them like our family in times of crisis is absolutely important as well.
So when we queue up good news, we recognize that in the first week of 2020, the first week of the new decade that we're in, it's not too late for the LGBT community to make good resolutions that can really kind of change our lives. Did you have a resolution you committed to, Aaron? No more Oreos with peanut butter.
No, well, I did have some more Oreos with peanut butter today. I would like to try to watch what I eat a little bit more, perhaps not have as many carbs and bread, not as much red meat, but also in terms of resolution, thinking of your health. And just to insert a little footnote here, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has announced today that she in 2020 is officially cancer-free.
Awesome.
So that is a blessing for many
really
of us.
great news.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm sure all of our supporters, which is every Democrat across the country, is very happy to hear that.
And Napoleon, any resolution for you for 2020?
Well, I am hoping to expel all of the things that are negative in my life as well, and think about myself, just like in these resolutions, about our greater sense of community and not just myself. How do my actions play into the greater field of which we're interacting, where platforms like this show allow us to have a greater voice? And I hope that I can live up to that standard to be a voice for the LGBTQ community.
And for me, I have made a significant commitment and resolution to health, much more active back into the gym. And my first week, I'm happy to report 4 pounds in the first week. So
no Oreo.
Right, exactly.
The skinny girl Oreo.
The skinny girl Oreo.
That's exactly right. So that's queuing up good news. America, world, that's our evening news broadcast tonight. We want to remind you at 8 o'clock on Wednesday night, It's Happening Out is getting ready to broadcast live. It is the most popular live gay TV show in the world. You can watch it at Facebook or in YouTube. Participants, this is basically The View for the gay community. Our host panelists are Chef Josie and Power Infinity, Aaron Phoenix, my friend Napoleon Plays, and I'm the moderator of the show. Tonight we have a guest from the executive director of the World AIDS Museum. And it's really a fun show, 8 o'clock tonight, and we encourage you to watch. So that's it. That is Q News tonight. We come to you live. This is a live show, live. It is unscripted, and we come to you every night, daily, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We encourage you to share us with your friends and tell your friends and family about what's going on in the LGBT community. Literally, at Q News tonight, it is out of the closet and into the headlines. We'll see you tomorrow night. Good night.